Have you ever sat in that heavy silence at a family dinner? Here on Human Stories, we retell those moments, honest, everyday, sometimes controversial. Every story is a mirror. Subscribe, join the conversation, and maybe find a little healing. Bellevue Square hums with white light. At Rain City Jewelers, glass cases bloom with stones that catch and scatter the ceiling. A manager in a navy blazer smiles too hard. Ava leans toward him, voice low, perfume clipped and citrus. She says, "She is the nanny, do not bother her." Mark laughs, the sound bouncing off mirrors and chrome. Ruth stands a half step behind them, coat damp at the cuffs, both hands around 3 glossy shopping bags. In her right pocket, a heavy ring of keys presses against her hip. She touches the cool metal with a finger and feels the shape she could name in the dark. The convex mirror in the corner gives her a funhouse silhouette. Shoulders rounded, hair a gray halo. She looks like a smudge someone forgot to wipe. "That one," Ava says, pointing at a diamond pendant that sits on velvet like a drop of hard water. "The setting is cleaner." "Treat yourself," Mark says. He checks his watch, the face polished to a small sun. "You should have it." The manager glances at Ruth when he wraps the pendant. The look is quick and practiced, a blend of pity and avoidance. The kind of look meant for someone who is useful but not meant to be seen. He slides the box into a bag and offers it to Ava, careful not to meet Ruth's eyes. "Thank you," Ava says. Her manicure taps the counter once. "Let us go, Mark. Traffic will be a mess on 405. Outside, the winter air is wet enough to breathe. Ruth follows them to the parking garage, the bags creaking with new weight. Her reflection flickers across car windows and goes thin when other people pass between her and the glass. She opens the back door and sets everything down, then closes it by its softened leather handle. When the keys in her pocket shift, they rasp together like coins. The house on Clyde Hill glows at the eaves when they pull in. Rain lifts and falls from fir trees in a slow curtain. Ava goes straight inside, calling out to the kids with a bright hello. Mark lingers long enough to hand Ruth his coat without looking at her face. "Hang that in the mudroom," he says. "Of course," Ruth says. She crosses to the guest house once the noise in the main kitchen swells. Her space smells like soap and coffee from last night. There is a small table, a kettle, photos, and simple frames. In one, Eli sits on a swing, hair in his eyes. In another, Nora holds a paper crown and scowls on purpose. Ruth slides off her ring and sets it in a dish by the sink. The band is scratched thin, the letters E and M still scraped into it from years ago. She looks at the letters until steam from the kettle unfogs the little window and makes her reflection return. Morning starts before the light. Ruth wakes to the sound of rain working the gutters. She grinds cinnamon with the heel of her hand and shakes it into the coffee grounds. The kitchen in the main house is pale and full of stainless steel. As the coffee blooms, a warm spice lifts out of the pot. She sets 4 plates. She places 2 oranges by the kids' seats. Eli and Nora come in with backpacks slung and hair still damp from showers. "Morning, Gran," Eli says. Nora touches Ruth's wrist before going to the fridge. "Eat first," Ruth says. "I made eggs." They sit. The room holds quiet in a pleasant way until Ava walks in with the brochure. The color on the paper is a green so perfect it looks fake. Pines cut against a sky that cannot be from around here. The logo reads Golden Pines at Cedar Ridge. Ava smiles a smile she uses in court. "I picked this up yesterday. It is a residence for seniors. They have a library, a spa, yoga classes. It is like a 5-star hotel." Mark takes the brochure and flips it open. "It is a great place," he said. "If he says, my insurance would cover it. They actually prefer you do it this way." Ruth pours the coffee. The cinnamon fog curls and then fades. "Prefer," she says, so soft it could be to herself. "It would be restful," Ava says. "You deserve to rest, Ruth. The guest house is small. It is not safe to live alone. Golden Pines has nurses, on-site doctors. I talked to the director. They were very helpful." Eli pauses with a fork halfway to his mouth. He looks from Ava to Ruth. Nora twists the orange until peel lifts off in clean white strings. "That is a big decision," Ruth says. She sets the pot down and takes her seat. The chair has a loose screw and whispers when she settles. "Have you two been talking about this for a while?" "We want what is best for everyone," Ava says. "You would have friends your age, activities. It would be more comfortable." Mark nods at the brochure like he's agreeing with it. "Everything would be handled. Paperwork, bills, that sort of thing. No headaches." "Insurance will cover it," he says again. "How much is it?" Eli asks. He tries to sound casual. It comes out too brave. Do not worry about money, Ava says without looking at him. Eat your breakfast. Nora slides the peels into a neat pile. She pushes the plate of oranges toward Ruth instead of the trash. After the kids leave, Rain returns hard, tapping every window like 100 fingers. Ruth clears plates, runs water, watches the bubbles climb. Ava stands at the island and smooths the brochure as if it were a dress that needs a final pass with an iron. Think about it, Ava says. The wait list moves fast if you are decisive. I can handle the arrangements. Ruth dries her hands. The towel smells like sun from detergent and a little like old lemons. What kind of arrangements? Tours, health forms, the usual, and the financial setup. Ava tucks the brochure into her tote. Mark and I do not want you worried. You took care of a lot for us. Let us return the favor. Mark checks his phone. I have a call. I will be back late. They are gone a few minutes later. The house goes soft and then too quiet. Ruth wipes the counter where a ring from the coffee pot soaked in. She straightens the fruit bowl. She looks at the window over the sink. The stain of rain makes the world beyond it blur. As she leans closer, her own face sharpens in the glass. For a second, she has the feeling of looking at herself from a distance. She puts on her coat and crosses the driveway to the guest house. The keys ride against her leg and click with each step. In her kitchen, she sets them down on the counter. The pile looks like a small heap of metal fish. She finds the Golden Pines number online and copies it carefully on a sticky note. The phone rings twice. A woman answers with a cheerful voice that sounds like the color of the brochure. Golden Pines at Cedar Ridge, how may I help you? Good morning, Ruth says. My family gave me your brochure. I would like to ask about rates and how payment works. We have several packages. Our premium suite is $8,000 per month. There is a 6-month prepay. Some services are additional depending on medical needs. $8,000, Ruth says. She repeats the words like she's counting stitches. And payment. Could someone else handle that for a resident? Of course, the woman says. Families often set up third-party billing or a power of attorney for convenience. We just require the proper documentation. Thank you, Ruth says. That is helpful. She ends the call and listens to the absence of the woman's voice. Outside, a crow calls from a telephone pole. She picks up her keys and closes her fingers around the ring until her knuckles pale. The metal edges press into her palm. When she sets the keys back down, they tap the counter with a bright sound that does not fade right away. She rinses a mug that does not need rinsing. She dries it. She places it back on the shelf in the same position. The window holds a thin sheet of light. In it, she can see her hand steady and clean and the small silver band with the faded letters resting in the dish by the sink. She reaches over and turns the band so the letters face out. The house is quiet enough to hear each drip drop off the eaves. She stands still and lets the quiet gather around her. Then she takes the brochure from her pocket and folds it once sharply until the spine creases. She puts it in the trash and then takes the trash back out and places the brochure on the counter instead. The keys wait beside it, dull and heavy, patient as tools. Rain gathers on the guest house window in clear beads that join and slide. Ruth lets the phone grow quiet on the counter. The brochure sits beside the keys. She presses a thumb into the paper until a dent holds, then lifts her coat and steps back into the weather. Capitol Hill smells like wet cedar and espresso. Daniel Cho's office is on the second floor of a brick building with a narrow staircase and a bell that rings once when the door opens. A plant sits in the window, leaves glossy from a spray bottle. There are diplomas in simple frames and a photo of a black dog with a gray muzzle asleep in sunlight. The rain on the glass is loud enough to be its own clock. Daniel looks up and smiles in a way that does not force anything. He stands and wraps Ruth in a brief hug that smells like coffee and dry wool. You look well, he says. I got up early, Ruth says. That helps. He reaches for the kettle on the credenza. Coffee. Yes, she says. The mugs are thick and white. He pours and sets one in front of her. Steam lifts, carrying a dark smell that smooths the edges of the room. You wrote that you had some concerns, he says. Tell me what happened. She keeps it short. Bellevue Square. The way Ava spoke to the manager, the morning brochure, Mark's easy line about insurance, the call to Golden Pines. She tells him the number, $8,000 a month, 6 months prepay, third-party billing, power of attorney. Daniel listens without interrupting. He has the stillness of a person who knows when not to move. When she finishes, he turns to a file already open on his desk. His hand rests on it as if to keep it from sliding away. 3 months ago, you asked me to glance at the store numbers, he says. We spoke. I told you everything looked within range. Ruth watches his face. You did. I was not ready to tell you what I thought then, he says. I wanted to be sure. Now I am sure. He turns the file so she can see. The pages have yellow flags that look like small tongues. He places his finger on a column of transactions. Small transfers. Unremarkable amounts. They stack. He moves to another page. It increases over time. The origin is a device in the Whitaker home. Router logs confirm it. Credentials that match your old password. Ruth's hands stay folded on her lap. She thinks of stitches that pull a seam open a little at a time. If you tug, the whole hem lifts. How much, she says. In 6 months, just under 200,000, he says, across several accounts. There is also a pattern of small cash withdrawals. He flips to a different file. The dog photo catches her eye again. It keeps the room from feeling too tight. I looked at Ava's situation, he says. Public records, court filings. She lost 2 significant cases last year. Arguments about discovery sanctions. Press did not cover it. Her firm is under pressure. There are debts. There is something else. He slides a thin folder to the top. He does not push it to her. He opens it and reads aloud in a careful tone that does not bend. A death certificate. Her first husband. Cause of death. Complications of Alzheimer's. Time in residence. 12 months. Facility records show she was the primary on his durable power of attorney for both health and finances. Ruth listens to the rain climb and fall on the window. She studies the rim of her cup, where a chip has been glazed over long ago. The name Golden Pines folds itself into the air between them and does not leave. What do I do, she says. We do what is practical, Daniel says. He speaks like he is tightening a strap. We secure what you own. We make sure no one can move it without you. We document. We do not argue feelings. We collect proof. You? He writes 2 short lines on a pad. His handwriting is clean and compact. You will need to change bank passwords. Ask for dual authorization thresholds. Make it boring for anyone who tries to move a dollar. We will also update your estate documents. The will must reflect your actual wishes. There will be conditions. There will be contingencies if someone you name is involved in abuse or fraud. Ruth looks at the plant leaves. Someone knows to wipe them. Someone likes them to shine. There is one more thing, he says. He opens a drawer and places a small recorder on the desk. It is flat and black and plain. You speak to them. You ask simple questions. You let them talk. You do not accuse. You request details, timeframes, payments, how they plan to handle accounts. If they speak freely, that is their choice. This will keep their words. That is what we need most. Ruth lifts the recorder. It is surprisingly light. The single red button looks like a berry in a winter yard. She tucks it into her purse and zips the pocket. I want to see what is in her study, she says. I want to know what she has on paper. Then look, he says. Wear gloves. Do not disturb the order of anything. Take photos. Put everything back. No prints on the glossy stuff. He scrolls through a contact on his phone and slides a card across the desk. Private investigator, Lila Torres. She is discreet. I would like a third party to be present when you tour Golden Pines. Someone who can verify you are speaking clearly, answering questions, making decisions. Documentation of capacity matters. Not because I doubt you, because it removes excuses. Ruth places the card under the recorder in her bag. She stands. The chair legs whisper on the rug. Thank you, she says. What you have built is sound, he says, looking at her in a way that lands. We keep it that way. The afternoon has a mossy color when she steps back onto the sidewalk. Seattle buses rumble by, windows fogged from breath. Ruth holds her umbrella with one hand and her purse tight against her side with the other. The water on the street is a skin of broken mirrors under tires. Back in Clyde Hill, the light is thin and the house has that end-of-day hum. Ruth waits in the guest house until she hears voices fade and car doors close. She slips on knit gloves she uses for gardening and walks to the main house. The front hallway smells like lemon oil and new carpet. Ava's office is the only room with a candle burned low. The wick glows red at the tip. The desk is set with precision. An inbox of brushed steel, a pen cup, a legal pad with Ava's last name printed at the bottom. There is a small locked drawer. The key for it is in a dish on the shelf. Ruth knows because she has seen Ava pull it out when she wants to show control of small things. Ruth lifts the key and fits it. The drawer opens with a breath of paper. The folder inside is slate blue. It has a silver clip. She slides it out and lays it on the desk. At the top is a draft of a durable power of attorney. The language is broad: all accounts, all assets, property transfers. The spaces for names carry printed letters that match her own. Someone has been practicing the curve of her R and the strict shape of her E. The next sheet is a medical proxy form. The following pages are brochures for Golden Pines with sticky flags on the sections about billing and permissions. Ruth takes her phone from her pocket. The gloves make her fingers slow. She pinches and focuses and shoots. The shutter sound is small and flat. The blue folder goes back into the drawer. The key goes back into the dish. The candle breathes a little when she passes. She does not touch it. In the garage, she stops by a shelf of paint cans and rags and reaches behind a stack of shoe boxes. She finds the black combination lockbox where she keeps originals of things she will not risk in a safe that is not her own. She checks the numbers. She opens it and confirms what she knows is there. Deeds. Titles. The stock certificate for Northwind Holdings. She closes the box and leaves it where it has always sat in the dark pocket behind old calendars no one will consult. She calls her bank next. The hold music is a loop of a piano that never resolves. When a human voice arrives, it is soft and trained. Ruth answers the questions no one else can answer. She chooses new passwords that her hands will remember even if her head is tired. She asks for dual authorization on anything over 1,000. The representative offers a fraud alert that chirps the moment a card leaves the expected path. Ruth says yeah. Then she calls the managers of each store, one by one. The names come easy as a prayer. There is the scent of cardboard and new denim in her memory, the clack of a label gun. She hears bustle behind them and puts warmth into the way she asks for what she needs. In-person approvals for any big shift, no exceptions. She speaks with respect and expects the same. They say yes, of course, Ms. Ellison. She tells them to call her simply Ruth. They laugh and agree and promise to note it. At dusk, Eli drifts into the guest house doorway. He knocks with his knuckles out of habit. Hungry, he says. Is there still soup? In the pot, Ruth says. Bowls are above the stove. He fills one and sits at the small table. The spoon is nicked where it has hit the pot too many times. He glances at the door and lowers his voice even though no one else is there. Mom says you might move, he says. She says it is cushy. That is her word. Cushy. Ruth sets a folded dish towel on the counter and turns to face him. That is what she said at breakfast. She says people your age forget things he says. His face goes pink as soon as the sentence is out. I do not think that. I just wanted to say that. Ruth lifts a hand and lets it rest on the back of his for a second. His skin is warm from the soup bowl. I know what I know, she says. He looks at the keys on the counter. Those are heavy, he says. They open a lot of doors, Ruth says. He grins without knowing why he feels better for seeing her smile. He eats. He rinses his bowl. He says goodnight. She listens to his steps fade across the gravel. She meets Lila Torres the next morning at a coffee shop near Green Lake. They sit at a corner table that has a view of the door and a reflection of that door in a wall mirror etched with a fern pattern. Lila is compact and quiet with a camera bag that looks like any purse. She has the eyes of someone who can hold still longer than anyone else in the room. Ruth slides a folded sheet of paper to her. Times, addresses, the name of the Golden Pines director. Lila reads and nods without making a point of it. When you talk and look at me sometimes, Lila says, I want clean angles of your face. It helps to show you are present. When they ask you questions about consent or finances, respond plainly. Do not rush. I do not rush, Ruth says. That is good, Lila says. I will sit apart. I will not speak to you there. If anyone asks who I am touring for my aunt. They drink. The espresso is bright and sour in a way Ruth likes. The mirror catches them and makes their faces line up in a faint double one with more light than the other. Thank you, Ruth says. Send a text when you are on the way, Lila says. I will be early. Ruth stops at the Ballard store on her way home. She steps in with the bell jingling high. The floorboards are old and pine-colored. The clerk is new and smiles with the eagerness of someone who notices everything. Ruth runs her fingers along a tray of brass keychains shaped like trout and houses and little rockets. She picks up a small key blank and feels its weight. The glass of the display case gives her back a clear version of her own face, and she lets herself look at it. Evening brings the rhythm of a house that has decided to be hungry. Ruth sets a chicken on a cutting board and slides lemon under the skin. She tucks rosemary in and rubs the bird with salt and oil until it shines. The oven door reflects the kitchen, a wavering picture of spatulas and a kettle and a line of spices. She can see her hands in it. The bird crackles when she opens to baste. The scent of fat and citrus lifts and fills corners. At the table, Ava sits with a highball glass, holding ice and nothing else. Mark scrolls and then puts the phone face down. Eli and Nora speak with their heads bent toward each other and laugh at something that has no words in it. "Smells perfect," Mark says. "Sit," Ruth says. "Eat while it is warm." They eat, and for a few minutes there is the soft clatter of plates and a shared quiet that belongs to the food. After the first helpings are gone and hands go back for more, Ruth looks up as if the thought just arrived. "I would like to understand the practical part," she says. "If I move, how would bills be handled? The small savings I have, the investments that are in my name." Ava places her fork down on the edge of her plate. Her tone is kind without softness. "We can take care of all of that. It is what I do. Paperwork takes time. It is easier if you sign a power of attorney. The general one, it avoids hiccups. We can keep you out of bureaucracy." Mark nods. "She is great at this." "You relax. We cover the detail." "What would the wording be?" Ruth says. "How wide?" "Standard coverage," Ava says. "Financial accounts, property if needed, insurance, medical decisions if you want that convenience too. It is typical." "That is a lot of trust," Ruth says. She brushes a crumb off the table with the side of her hand. "Can I see a draft?" "I already assembled something preliminary," Ava says. She stands. "We can review it later tonight if you like. It is in my study." "Later works," Ruth says. She keeps her voice even and close to warm. Eli looks at the oven and then at Ruth. He seems to be counting something in his head. Nora stacks orange peels again without eating them. The space above the table holds a faint tension like a string tuned a little too tight. After dinner, Ava walks Ruth to the study and places a folder on the desk. The same slate blue, the same silver clip. Ruth opens it, leafs through pauses at the places where her name would go. She does not linger. She closes the folder and smiles as if she has been given a recipe she will try soon. "Thank you," she says. "Of course," Ava says. Her manicure clicks once on the desk and stops. Night thins to a quiet that has weight. Ruth sits in her small kitchen with the recorder on the table in front of her. She presses the red button. The light comes on without sound. She says her name, the date, the time. She reads the label on a jar of cinnamon and laughs once at herself for needing to speak to the room. The laugh sounds normal. She pulls out her phone and sends 2 messages, one to Lila with the hour for the tour, one to Daniel with a simple line. "Talked with them at dinner. Documents exist." She slips the recorder into the inside pocket of her cardigan and feels for it with her palm. Then she stands, reaches up, and hangs the keys on their hook by the door. The wood creaks a little. The metal settles. The room holds steady. Golden pine sits on a hill, cut clean from the trees, all angles and glass. The lobby smells like eucalyptus and new carpet. A fountain whispers in a corner, water threading over a stack of dark stones. A woman in a blazer appears with a practiced smile and a clipboard pressed to her chest. "Welcome to Golden Pines at Cedar Ridge," she says. "I am Marissa. You must be Ruth." Ruth nods. She can feel the small recorder inside her cardigan level with her ribs. The red light is hidden by knit. She keeps her shoulders easy. Ava answers for them. "We spoke on the phone," she says. "We would like to see the premium wing. We have questions about billing and health protocols." "Of course," Marissa says. "Right this way." The hallway has thick carpet that drinks the sound of footsteps. Artwork hangs in a precise line. Sunlight falls through a pane of glass and warms a bench. The air is even everywhere, no drafts, no surprises. Marissa opens a door. "Premium suite," she says. "Sitting area, bedroom, private bath, weekly housekeeping, on-call nursing. The room is nice in the way a hotel is nice. The bedspread looks new. The window frames a stand of pines that hold rain like beads." Ruth walks to the glass and sets 2 fingers against it. Cold comes through. Her reflection is clear. The skin at the back of her hand is thin, the veins blue, the bones honest. A woman in a knit jacket sits in a nearby lounge reading a magazine. On a table beside her is a cloth rose that will hold its color longer than any real one. A television somewhere shows a travel channel with the sound, "Low a beach where the water is too bright." Marissa leads them past the dining room. Stainless gleams through a swinging door. Workers move without hurry but never stop. There's a bulletin board with schedules. Tai Chi at 9, book club at 2, film night after dinner, all of it in tidy letters that reassure. Ava drifts close to Marissa as they turn another corner. Her voice lowers professional and quick. For billing, do you accept third-party payment? If a resident has a power of attorney, do you require originals or certified copies? How do you handle medical consent? We are flexible, Marissa says. We accept third-party payment trusts, guardianships, powers of attorney. We ask for supporting documents and keep them on file. For medical matters, we follow the directives we have on record in a physician's assessment. Assessments, Ava says. How often? On admission, Marissa says. As needed after that. We want families to feel supported. Ruth listens and accepts the small paper cup of water someone offers. The water tastes like it has sat in the cooler a day too long. She thanks them anyway. On a bench by the window, her reflection sits beside her like a quiet friend. Across the lobby, a woman in a green coat studies a frame print. Her hair is tucked under a cap. She looks up once, her eyes moving without trying to catch anyone's attention. When she turns, the camera bag reads as a purse no one would notice. Lila does not smile. She tilts her face toward Ruth for just a beat enough for a picture that shows both of Ruth's eyes and the set of her mouth. Then she looks away and reads a brochure like any visitor. They finish in a room with brochures fanned in arcs. Marissa places a folder in front of them. Our premium suite is $8,000 per month, she says. We require 6 months prepayment. Additional fees apply for certain therapies and medications. Here's a list. Ava takes the list and scans it. We can handle the financials, she says. We want her settled quickly. There is a wait list, I assume. We manage our list responsibly, Marissa says. Timely decisions are helpful. Ruth looks at the list. The numbers sit on the page as neat as stitches in a hem. She can feel them pull. She looks at Marissa and gives the kind of smile she uses for people who are doing their job well. Thank you for your time, Ruth says. Of course, Marissa says. If you would like to start the process, we can schedule a medical intake. We will need identification, current medications, and a financial contact. Ava and Marissa exchange cards. Lila stands and leaves as if she has forgotten the time. In the car, rain knots on the windshield and the wipers open the view again and again. Ava keeps the folder on her lap and speaks with a brightness that climbs. See, she says. It is perfect. You would not have to worry about anything. The grounds are beautiful. The staff is attentive. It is close enough for easy visits. Ruth watches the road lines pass under the hood. The pines along the highway hold water and flick gray as the car moves. It was organized, she says. They seem to know their work. She looks at Ava's hands on the folder. The nails are a pale pink that catches light. Back in Clyde Hill, the house holds a warmer note. Eli's shoes sit by the door laces, curved in a drop. Nora has left a book on the couch with a napkin tucked in to save a page. Ruth breathes in the smell of lemon oil and heat rising from vents. Dinner is simple. Toasted bread, a pot of tomato soup that grabs the throat a little, a salad that crunches. Mark pours himself water, then a second glass, then remembers to ask if anyone else wanted some. Ruth waits until spoons have given way to forks. She sets hers down. The room tilts to her without anyone moving. I will make the change, she says. Golden Pines is fine. I want to do this with clear steps. If there are documents to sign, I would prefer to review them in the morning. Ava's eyes lift in quick surprise and then settle. I can bring the drafts, she says. We can go through them together. Morning is better, Ruth says, when my head is fresh. Mark smiles like a weight he did not see is off him. That is great, Mom. We can get things moving. Eli watches Ruth's face. Nora traces a finger along the seam of the table where a tiny chip catches the light. Night is a softer thing when the kids have homework and the dishwasher hums. Ruth rinses the pot and leaves it to dry. In the guest house, she sets the recorder on the table and checks the battery. The red light stares back at her like a tiny eye that does not blink. She sleeps in pieces and wakes before her alarm. Early light is the color of milk. She washes her face and ties back her hair. She chooses a cardigan with an inside pocket deep enough to hold the recorder where it will not move. She slides the ring of keys into her left pocket and listens to the brief, bright contact of metal against metal. At 8, Ava appears with a tote and a smile that shows every tooth. Good morning, she says. Shall we sit at your table? The light is nice in here. They sit. The table is small and honest. Ava lays out the papers, stacking them straight, aligning edges. She turns each page to the line that waits for a signature. The words are dense and polite. The spaces for names are open. Take your time, Ava says. I can answer any questions. Ruth presses a fingertip to the paper and slides it down the paragraph, not reading aloud, not rushing. She can feel the recorder in her pocket warm from her body. The keys rest on their hook by the door, dull and patient. She picks up the pen. The point clicks once. She looks at the place where her name would go and then lifts her eyes to Ava's face. Before I sign, Ruth says, I have a question. Ruth keeps her finger on the line for her name. She lifts her eyes. How much do you think you are about to take from me, she says. The pen in Ava's hand ticks once on the table, then stops. A small smile appears and goes flat. I do not understand the question, Ava says. I think you do. Ruth says. Her voice is even. You have been busy. Phones, meetings, a folder with my name printed neat. The numbers at Golden Pines were clear. $8,000 a month, 6 months up front. That is not pocket change. Ava leans back, palms open in a careful show. Ruth, we are simply trying to make your life easier. The documents let me help, pay bills, coordinate care. You sign and I handle the noise. Ruth reaches under the chair and brings up a slim folder of her own. The paper is warm from where it has been against her leg. She sets it on the table and opens it like a person who knows the weight of each page. Let us be plain, she says. She slides the first sheet forward. This is a statement from one of my accounts. Ava glances down. The number sits cool on the page. 2.4 million, Ruth says, as if reading a price tag out loud in a store that does not haggle. There are 8 others like it. Ava's eyes shift to the door and back. She does not pick up the page. Here, Ruth says. She moves the next document into the light. The deed to this house. I bought it 6 years ago, in full. Another paper slides forward. The title for the car, Mark drives. Registered to me. The last sheet waits under her hand. And this, the certificate for Northwind Holdings. Ava looks at the stack without touching it. She chooses her words like she's laying down cards she wishes were better. If that is true, she says, if you have that much, then you need support more than I knew. You will be a target. You could be taken advantage of. I am a lawyer. I can make sure that does not happen. You sign the power of attorney and I shield you from nonsense. Ruth lets the silence stand until it feels like a wall that someone can see for what it is. She taps the pen once against the table to match the tick she heard earlier. What is the scope, she says. Define it for me. The power of attorney you drafted. How wide are you planning to reach? Ava looks down at the blue folder she brought and then back to Ruth's face. She keeps her tone smooth. Standard authority, she says. Financial accounts. Real property transactions. Consent for medical decisions if needed. Access to tax records. Ability to sign for you in routine matters. It is not unusual, Ruth. If I wanted to sell a building, Ruth says, would you sign on my behalf? If it served your best interest, Ava says. She adds a nod designed to read as reassurance. I would have that ability. That is the point. And if you wanted to move money between entities, Ruth says you could initiate it. Yes, Ava says. She places one fingertip on the page by the signature line. With your welfare in mind, that is the purpose. Ruth lowers her gaze. The recorder in her pocket is a steady coin of heat. She lets a breath move through her chest and then sets the pen aside. She lays her palm flat over the pages she brought. Good, she says. I wanted that on record. Ava blinks once. On record, she repeats. Ruth reaches into the cardigan's inside pocket. She brings out the recorder and places it between them. The red light is small and patient. It colors a circle on the wood. I have been recording since you walked in, Ruth says. I did not hide that from you. Ava's smile returns and thins. It is your right to record your own meetings, she says. It does not change anything. Then let us not change anything, Ruth says. Let us add one more piece. Footsteps on the gravel outside. The guest house door stands half open to the damp. Mark appears in the frame, hair still wet from a rushed shower. He takes in the table, the pages, the light. We signing, he says, then sees the recorder and stops moving. We are talking, Ruth says. Mark moves inside and lowers into a chair that complains softly. He keeps his eyes on the stack that carries numbers he did not expect to see this morning. Mom, what is this? He says, a voice trying to land on light and missing. Is that really your account? All of that in there? Yes, Ruth says. And yes. He looks at Ava. He waits for a cue. None arrives that he can see. He puts his hand out toward the deed as if heat comes off it. Why did you never tell me, he says. You did not ask, Ruth says. He looks like that line was a door he walked into. His mouth closes without sound. Ava adjusts, finding another angle. Ruth, she says softer, you have been so generous. If you had told us, we would have set things up sooner. We would have made sure your estate was protected. We would have moved you closer to proper care. This is beyond what you can manage on your own. Ruth's eyes go to the window. A bead of rain slides and leaves a clean trail behind it. In the glass, she can see her own face and two other shapes that blur when they shift. I have managed fine, she says, for years. Ava's posture tightens. Her words come quicker. People your age can be very capable in familiar routines and still lack capacity in complex financial matters. It is not an insult. It is reality. You could sign now and save time. I can walk these to the notary. We can have them today. Ruth keeps her hand on the papers she brought, not the ones Ava wants. I found your drafts in your drawer, she says. I took pictures. I saw the sections you flagged. I know exactly what you intend to do with my signature. Ava answers fast, a small step too fast. Those are templates. Every firm has them ready. It is efficient. Ruth looks at Mark. You have been spending like your paycheck grew, she says. It did not. I saw the transfers. Slow, small, they build. It was not me, he says. He hears how thin that sounds and winces. I did not move anything. You did not need to, Ruth says. You let it happen and enjoyed what it bought. He opens his mouth and closes it again. His hands move under the table, fingers locking and unlocking like a person trying to find the right knot. A knock. Not the light tap of a neighbor. 2 sharp knocks. Ruth does not look surprised. She rises and crosses to the door. Rain breathes in when she opens it. 2 people stand on the step. The woman in front has short hair and a face that reads as awake. She holds a folder. The man behind her wears a uniform and looks at hands more than at faces. Behind them on the driveway, a car idles with lights on. Red and blue pulse across the wet. Mrs. Ellison, the woman says. Detective Sarah Peterson, this is Officer Lang. May we come in? Yes, Ruth says, please. They step inside. The air shifts. The room becomes a place where things are said for the record. Ms. Whitaker, the detective, says, turning, I need to speak with you. Ava straightens. Detective, I am an attorney. If you plan to question me, I will require counsel present. We have a warrant, the detective says. She opens the folder. Paper makes a sound that is different when it matters. For arrest on suspicion of financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraud and conspiracy. She reads rights in a tone that is clear and practiced without hurry. This is ridiculous, Ava says. Color has left her face without asking. She keeps her chin up anyway. There is no case. There is a family decision to make. That is all this is. The door frames another figure. Daniel steps in out of the wet coat, shoulders shining. He nods to Ruth and keeps his eyes on the detective while speaking to her. Detective Peterson, he says, thank you for coming. We received supporting materials, the detective says. They warranted action. Ava looks at Daniel like he is a leak she did not know about. You reached out to the police, she says to Ruth. It is not a question. Ruth answers clean. I reached out to my lawyer. The officer moves behind Ava with a practiced economy. The cuffs are quick. Metal touches skin. The sound is simple and wrong in a domestic room. Ava breathes in through her nose and holds the air like she can use it later. Mark Whitaker, the detective says. Shifting her attention without drama, we need to speak to you as well. You are not under arrest at this moment. You will accompany Officer Lang to the station for questioning. Mark stands as if the floor asked him to. He looks at Ruth. His voice lands on a plain plea. Mom, he says, I did not know the money was stolen. I swear I did not. Ruth holds his eyes. She sees a boy who needed new cleats on a Saturday and a man who liked the leather smell in a new car. What you knew matters, she says. What you chose not to know matters too. He swallows. He nods once. He looks at the door because the door is simple. As Ava passes, she aims her words at Ruth with care, each one measured. Think of the children, she says. Eli, Nora, do not break their lives to make a point. Ruth does not flinch. They will be with people who will not spend their futures, she says. Ava's mouth tightens. She keeps walking. The officer guides her with a hand that never pushes, only directs. The detective follows. Daniel stays back with Ruth. On the driveway, the patrol car shifts its lights across wet cedar and glass. The colors skate on the guest house window. The red moves like a seam that has been pulled and now holds. Daniel takes a breath and lets it out slow, fogging the window pane for a moment. The fog clears on its own and leaves the old clean world behind it. You did what you needed to do, he says. Ruth looks at the recorder on the table. Its red light no longer glows. She presses stop with her fingertip. The click is small but final. Eli and Nora, she says, they did not ask for any of this. I will make calls, Daniel says. Their grandparents will want to know. Ruth nods. They stand without filling the space with words. Rain softens. The hum of the patrol car lowers and goes as it pulls away. The house settles as if it has been holding a breath. Ruth lifts the keys from the hook by the door. They lie in her palm, heavy and familiar. She closes her hand and feels the teeth mark her skin. She sets them down and sits. The papers are still in 2 neat stacks. Her name does not sit on any line in ink. The room is quiet enough to hear the last drops fall from the eaves. The phone on the counter vibrates once and lights the half dark. She glances at the screen. King County Jail. The call preview glows and goes dark. Ruth drives to the jail while rain loosens into mist. The intake hall smells like disinfectant and old coffee. A clerk slides a clipboard toward her without looking up. In the visiting room, the light is flat and the paint is a patient beige. Mark sits on the other side of the glass with his hands around a plastic cup that is already empty. His face looks younger and more tired at the same time. He picks up the phone. Ruth picks up hers. I am sorry, he says. His voice threads through static. I thought things would work out. I did not think about how. I did not want to. Ruth studies the ring of water under his cup. She says what she knows is true. I hear you, she says. He swallows. Are you going to change everything? I already did, she says. The stores are steady. Money will do what it should. He understands without needing the names. He nods. His eyes redden and clear. He presses his lips together and then lets them relax. Is this the last time, he says. That is your answer to give, she says. You will decide that. He looks at her for a long second as if that time were an object he could lift and keep. Then he sets the cup down. A guard taps the glass with a knuckle. Mark hangs up and stands. He puts his palm against the window like a boy. Ruth sets her hand opposite his. The glass is cool and smooth and honest. News moves fast in a town that likes to read. The paper lands with a flat sound on the porch. The headline sits heavy in a narrow column. A local anchor reads into a camera while a crawl tells the rest. Daniel calls and says the words that make the legal part settle. 12 years for Ava on the counts they brought. Probation for Mark and work of the kind that leaves a person sore and quiet. Eli and Nora arrive with backpacks and sleep over one more night. They cook with Ruth loud and simple and leave the kitchen just messy enough to feel like a family was there. In the driveway next morning, Eli stands without moving as if staying still could slow the car. Nora hugs with both arms and does not let go right away. You will be all right, Ruth says. You have people. Can I write, Eli says. You can write, Ruth says. Use your full name on the envelope. When their taillights vanish, the house sounds too large. Ruth walks through each room once. She leaves the windows clean. She leaves the fruit bowl full. In the garage, she pulls 2 boxes into the trunk of a car that smells like new foam and paper. She locks the door behind her and lays her palm on the wood for one extra beat. The grain is smooth from many hands. The stores breathe without her there as much. She steps into one anyway just to hear the bell that is slightly off-key. Cardboard new denim, a hint of lemon cleaner. A clerk who calls her Ms. Ellison the first time and then Ruth. The label gun clacks in the back. In the office, a new placard sits on the wall with a simple name. Harbor Light. The letters are clear and upright. A month later, the air's thin and bright. The house in Santa Fe has adobe walls that hold the day and give it back at dusk pinon smoke threads from a neighbor's chimney and tastes sweet when it reaches the porch. Ruth hangs the old keys on a nail by the door. They make a small sculpture of brass and steel, a cluster of weight and teeth. In the morning, they catch light and throw it back in dull coins. She writes at a small table with a view of cottonwood branches. Her ring lies in a shallow dish. The letters on it face up. She goes slow and stops often. The work feels like stitching that will hold. Daniel visits once with a folder and sets it aside without opening it. They drink coffee and talk about dogs they had as children. Later, he leaves with a paper bag of green chile and a smile that is not something he has to try to make. A letter arrives with a Seattle postmark. The envelope is neat and careful. Eli writes about a class where he gets to build a bridge from balsa and glue. He writes that Nora likes algebra more than she admits. He writes that the city looks different when you pay attention to the tops of buildings instead of the street. He signs his full name, the letters tall. Ruth folds the letter and then unfolds it again to take in the lines one more time. She tucks it into the corner of a frame. The glass holds it flat and keeps it sharp. Evening comes. The sky over the mountains turns to a slow red. A wind moves along the house and makes the chimes on a neighbor's porch speak in a low voice. Ruth boils water and brews coffee with a pinch of cinnamon for no reason other than it pleases her. She carries the cup to the doorway and stands where the last of the light touches the floor. The keys shift on their nail and click once, a clean note in a quiet room. She breathes and lets the room rest where it is. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.